he's now got something to prove. You know, he needs to be able to say, well, actually, if I'm not going to be LCS yet, I need to be the top of Challenger Series. And to get to the Challenger Series, I need to qualify for Challenger Series. And you're going to really got to sort of step up at that support role. Clyde's got a lot of stuff to prove during the course of this tournament. And, you know, we can hope he can do so.
Yeah, and I think that's safe to say about the vast majority of the players here still either have something to reprove, kind of want to regain their honor almost, and a lot of the other players are newer to the scene. They want to make themselves a reputation. And I think we should actually take a look at these two lineups in a little bit more detail as we kind of jumped into Champions Select. That kind of jumped the gun a little bit. Let's take a look at the two rosters. I mean, we've already mentioned a few of the names here. Like, who stands out for you guys? You
were talking about people needing to reprove or prove that they've still got it. Fnatic Academy is full of it. Clyde, Kikis, Mr. Rales. These guys have got a lot of stuff, you know, a lot of stuff to prove and step up to, considering Mr. Rales at one point was considered one of the best AD carries in Europe.
I think there's a thing with Mr. Rales that the AD carry meta at the moment doesn't quite suit him as much as it used to do. You know, Lucian was one of his main AD carries, very out of meta at the moment. We're looking more towards utility. Talking about the rest of Fnatic Academy as well, Broxah and Niski have been around at the top echelon of the amateur scene for a couple of years now, so they're really trying to take that step and get towards Challenger Series and get towards the LCS.
Broxah really exploded in the last year, though. He kind of came out of nowhere. A lot of people saying, well, this guy just came into the Challenger ladder. He was insane. Obviously, we know his Lee Sin is probably one of his favorites, if not his best champion by quite a margin. And we've seen him firsthand what he can do to lower level opposition. Now he's got to step up and prove himself against the same, if not higher level opposition, because Euronics Gaming are one of the favorites. If you talk to, you know, Twitter and all the social media outlets, they're saying that Euronics Gaming are one of the favorites to make it out of this group, and some people are actually mentioning Fnatic Academy not even making it out. So
I think one of the things with talking to Twitter about that sort of thing is you have to remember Twitter's not a great form of analytical media, so you have to be slightly worried about how that works. Euronics, on the other hand, though, let's have a quick talk about that.
Yeah, I think an important thing to mention is the fact that Euronics actually came first from the Europe West qualifiers, whereas Fnatic only had third place from the qualifiers. So if you look at seedings, if you look at previous tournament performance within the last couple of weeks or last couple of months, Euronics are higher up there on my list, certainly. And this is the thing. It's a team of people that most general viewers won't actually know these players. So this is their opportunity to really show why they were the first in the qualifiers and why they deserve this LCS spot.
And it's interesting as well because MagiFelix has had some questions raised of him. You know, he is an insanely gifted mid laner. You can tell that from his performances in solo queue as well as how he performs online. Sometimes people have said when it counts, MagiFelix doesn't quite step up to the plate. You know, this is the time to find your feet on that plate, hoist yourself up, and say, I'm ready. I'm ready for the big time in League of Legends, and MagiFelix has really got to step up and prove himself as one of the best mid laners in Europe.
Definitely. Coming back to that open qualifier as well, actually, these two teams met in the semi-finals, and Fnatic Academy had lost 2-1 to Euronics. You know, Euronics went through, they got first spot. Fnatic Academy had to knock out Kick Esports to get that third position, and Alien Tech, of course, came secondary in Group B. But I would not be surprised at all if this game is a lot closer than a lot of people think, especially people who look at it at a superficial level.
And that's a huge point as well, is the fact that series was 2-1. Now, this is a best-of-1 format for the group stage. Each team gets 5 games. They have to beat as many as they can out of their group. And in a best-of-1 format, you know, we could actually see some cheesy strategies come out here in the group stage.
Well, the interesting thing about a best-of-1 format compared to what you see in a lot of other formats, like obviously best-of-2, best-of-3, best-of-5, whatever, is that the draft phase matters that much more. You have to have the preparation, the prediction, the you know, the strategy going into that portion of the game. And I know, obviously, Riot are now trying to put more and more impetus on that draft phase, you know, making coaches have a larger role, the differentiated pick and ban phase that we're going to see in the future. But the draft phase in the best-of-1 becomes one of the most crucial parts, because there's a lot of times when you go into a match of League of Legends and you lose straight up from the draft phase, and then the game just plays itself out pending no insane performances. You could end up doing badly just without even setting foot onto the Rift.
I totally agree, and I actually think if you look at the draft phase thus far, I know that we haven't, you know, we're currently in a break, so we can't quite bring it up, but that you look at what you were talking about earlier with the Jhin counter priority here on Euronics. You know, they've got Ryze and Nami to try and counteract that Jhin. Jhin is one of the best AD carries at the moment. Mr. Raleigh will be comfortable on him. Alongside that, you've probably got Ashe. Actually, we are straight into game, so just rounding out the rest of the picks, it's you've got the Maokai pick top lane, Nautilus pick top lane, and it looks like it is the Jhin lock-in here as well. Munchables and Scoundrels, take it away.
Thank you very much, Sono. We are into the first game. Apologies about missing the rest of that pick and ban phase, but it's all been fixed and sorted now, and ready to get this first game of the European Challenger Scene qualifier underway, and we'll find out who's going to be coming in swinging here.
So we didn't get too much of a chance to talk about the compositions during the pick and ban phases. We had a couple of issues, obviously, just getting that feed to you. Let's look at it now, though, since we've got everything else locked in. That Jhin counter came in very early on. It looks like Fnatic picked it anyway. They felt comfortable in that situation.
Yep.
With the fact that Cedrion's going for this Varus, you obviously know that he's been preparing this. He feels pretty comfortable with Noxiac in that 2v2 matchup in the bot lane. They're not going to be able to push, though. What Karma does is allow Jhin to push early on, because Jhin doesn't have the best push in the world early on. So what they're going to be able to do is push in this Varus and Nami earlier than they probably would have been able to if they didn't have the Karma on their side.
Yeah, and I think as well, the Varus, when you've got a Nami next to you, most picks are fairly safe. Nami, one of the best supports in-game for disengaging, for protecting their AD carry and making sure nothing too crazy going to be happening. So, we are going to be coming back to us for a second.
So, Sona has disappeared, as you can see. Sona is...
Apparently there are a couple of issues with the Fnatic team.
Okay, well, you guys have seen the compositions. Let's talk a little bit. I'm going to talk about that mid lane matchup as well. Syndra versus Ryze is an interesting one. Syndra actually should, for the most part, have complete dominance of this lane. What Ryze is going to be looking to do is just attempt to survive. You can't trade efficiently with the Syndra, especially post-6. That gets even worse for the Ryze. Then you're going to be looking to go into teamfights, and it's what you're going to offer as a Ryze versus a Syndra in a teamfight. What Syndra offers is a multitude of CCs. She can get multiple Scatter the Weaks out with those ability to knock multiple orbs as well, and you have the ability to burst someone in an instantaneous situation, and then Ryze brings sort of a more teamfight orientated, a little bit more damage across the board. He's a little bit harder to take down, and obviously once you get towards late game Ryze, he'll be doing as much burst damage, if not potentially more than Syndra. But it's about surviving that long, and it's going to be up to the Syndra in this lane matchup to apply pressure to Ryze, to make it difficult for him to go towards the build path he potentially wants. You're going to have to work a Negatron cloak in there early on, and it's the same reason Cassiopeia doesn't do particularly well. You pick up a tier early on, you're going to delay that Negatron cloak, and then that gives Syndra an opportunity to start to pressure post-6 especially.
Yeah, and do you think, like, when you mention the mid lane matchup, you immediately have to then transition the conversation into your junglers? We've got Broxah versus Obvious here, but both on very aggressive junglers. Do you think that that should be a huge factor heading toward the mid lane, or do you think it'll just be about the players in specific in the mid lane?
The problem for Rengar is he can't actually gank mid lane. Not particularly well anyway. What Rengar relies on is post-6 using his ultimate or finding a lane gank through the bot lane or top lane side brushes. So, you know, it's very difficult for Rengar to actually impact the mid lane, whereas we know Lee Sin will look to make high mobility ganking plays. What Rengar can do, however, is exploit poor vision and just walk his way in. You know, any jungler can do that, and Rengar is one of the best as well if you get good positioning for your bowler. And he's very good at counter-ganking in that respect too.
And one thing Rengar is excellent at is when you're going against something like Syndra, you have that CC immunity at your disposal. So should you be able to exploit vision, you'll be able to get something. Phones though up in the top lane, going very aggressive onto Kikis, who's already feeling the pressure in this 1 versus 1. I mean, talk to me about this matchup. Should Kikis be this far behind right now?
Well, actually, this matchup, funnily enough, is even for the most part, but it is actually slightly tipped towards Maokai. I'll talk about it in a second, though. Broxah may be looking to put pressure onto
Ward
Magi
jumps
Felix.
forward, manages to land the Sonic Wave, will not commit, though. Wants to save his summoner spells, but Magi Felix, while he takes a lot of damage, keeps both of his up.
Yeah, and Niski is going to stay in that mid lane for the moment, just dealing with the wave as they come towards turret. But again, that's what Lee Sin can do early on. Broxah, expect him to put lots of pressure, trying to combo with that Scatter the Weak from Niski to try and find attempted ganks there. It's going to be a lot harder for Obvious to do the same on this Rengar. However, there is a timer here for Broxah. If Broxah doesn't start to make things happen on the map, you're going to get towards that 6, and you can see Obvious is already level 4. That's when Rengar's going to come online.
Well, you say there's the anti-synergy. Kikis accidentally knocking away phones from the Sonic Wave. That means he can walk away comfortably from that one and get straight onto his tower and keep himself alive.
So you saw there a couple of little nice micro things that I was about to go into the matchup between Maokai and Nautilus. Obviously, during Twisted Advance, you become untargetable. So Phones, they're able to dodge out the Sonic Wave. Although he did get transported to where Lee Sin ended up, he actually received 0 damage there. So after that Sonic Wave and Resonating Strikers come down from Lee Sin, you actually lose a large portion of your damage on a gank, and he was free, Phones there to just walk away. You can do the same thing anything in the matchup with Nautilus. You can stop the hook landing, you can stop the root landing on the basic attack. There's multiple small things that a Maokai can do against Nautilus that gives him a slight edge when it comes to the 1v1, although this is a 1v1 between two tanks. So you're talking about, you know, the difference between, you know, something that, well, I was about to give a metaphor, can't think of a metaphor.
Well, let's take a quick look across these lineups right now, as we obviously kind of got our conversations cut short a little bit during Champion Select. Let's look at the compositions as a whole. What are the goals of these two teams? Who's going to be winning the early game and who's looking to stall out?
In general, there are two major favoured types of team compositions on 624. Generally tends to be siege-orientated or teamfight-orientated. As you can see, with the addition of Maokai, the addition of Ryze, and the synergy that they have with the Varus as well, there is an element of teamfight coming in here for Euronics Gaming. They are just probably, for the most part, trying to survive as long as possible. We're going to have Obvious looking for a potential gank up here in the top lane. Again, it is difficult for a Rengar to impact unless he gets superior by quite a margin positional advantage.
Absolutely, and you can see as well in the mid lane, we've got Niski is pushing up fairly heavily. He's trying to put some pressure onto Magic Felix if he can, but Kikis looking to do some damage in the top lane as well. All in all, across the entire map, we've just got trades going back and forth, but nothing too crazy, as Cedrian and Mr. Ralez as well will pass that damage back and forth, but CS-wise, we're pretty much even across the board.
You also need to think about how the Euronics Gaming in general is going to deal with Jhin. When you've got a Jhin on your team, oh wow, Kikis finds it.
Nice denial here, and actually a lot of damage. One more auto attack will do it, but it's the dot. He doesn't even need another auto attack. First blood goes the way of Kikis.
And it's a double whammy there, because he burns the flash and doesn't even need to burn his own, but Magic Felix.
Oh, he's in trouble now. The summoners have been used, but it's not enough. Broxah grabs one for himself, and suddenly Fnatic Academy have turned on the boosters.
Well, I tell you what, Fnatic Academy, they are looking like they have come out of this into the Challenger Scene qualification tournament as a very strong contender here. And initially, you've got so many high-level talent players here, and Broxah, like we said, looking to make an impact in that mid lane, knowing that it's hard for Obvious to respond. Deep Vision going to come down here for Klai as well.
Yeah, I love this from Fnatic. They say, look, we've got 2 kills, we've forced other people out of lanes, let's take this opportunity and push it further, get some Deep Vision set up for Dragon.
Without Flash as well, Magic Felix is going to become infinitely more vulnerable. You know, a Ryze without Flash is like an Orianna without Flash. You don't go anywhere, you can't get away from Lee Sin, you can't get away from Scatter the Weak from the Syndra, and especially post-6, he is going to become a huge target now. It's up to Broxah to continue that pressure, but Niski could even potentially do that himself. Now he has hit that level 6 mark.
Yeah, and I think as well, not having your Flash available as you get that Realm Walk on Ryze can be really impactful to how you play the rest of the mid game, because until that comes back up, you have to be so much more safe with your Realm Walk. You can't afford to get yourself in a bad spot. And speaking of bad spots, Ghost is going to be used. Broxah staying onto him though. There's the insect coming on through, and that is a kill for Niski. Fnatic pick up their hat trick.
Well, that's what you expect when you pick a Ryze mid into Syndra. You're going to be consistently pressured, consistently punished, and that was a 4-man gank onto the Ryze. If you're going to be putting a Ryze behind, this is the way to do it. And actually, you can see Magi Felix has opted just to ignore any form of Negatron Cloak. He knows actually, realistically, 1v1 versus Syndra, he's not going to get locked into those kind of fights. He's just accelerating as quickly as he can towards a late game orientated push. He's got the Catalyst of Aeons now, he's got the tier. He's saying, well, actually, if I'm getting focused this hard, I might as well say that my early game's over. I'm focusing a little bit later on now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's kind of the way you have to go from this point in the game. Certainly, they're going to be agreeing with you on this one. And we'll see now what Euronics have in the bag here. What's up their sleeve to pull themselves back into this game? Because they're now at a 1.5k gold deficit. And at 8 minutes in the game, that's a fairly big deal, and it's certainly not the start that they were looking for.
The worst thing for Euronics is, as well, you're going up against the Jhin Nautilus composition, as well as having the Lee Sin, who becomes, you know, really good at isolating key targets as the game progresses using his kick. When Mr. Ralez gets 6, when you start to see things group up, he is 6 now, and you add the Nautilus into the picture, they can essentially pick and choose when they want to find an engage or a pick. You just use the curtain call, you either throw Broxah in there to isolate someone, or you throw Kikis in there to start a fight, and everything becomes on Fnatic Academy's terms. They're the ones that will be dictating the pace of teamfights, where they want to engage, trying to fight around global objectives, and actually, as Euronics, you need to find a good, solid way to disengage, and if I'm completely honest, there aren't many there apart from the Nami wave. You may maybe could get the Varus ultimate to work as a disengage if you try hard enough. But realistically, Euronics are going to be relying solely on Noxiac here to try and disengage from that Jhin ultimate. Obviously, we know that the Nami does well into Jhin ultimate. You use the wave where you see the position coming from, it knocks him out of his ultimate. But that might be too late. A couple of bullets could be all that it needs for Kikis to find the engage.
And I think one of the key things as well in this game specifically is when you look at Brock... Magic Felix just getting away with his life there. When you look at Broxah and Niski, both of them have very short cooldown ultimates available to them. Like, between the combinations, we already saw the Dragon's Rage into unlimited power from Niski, and that got them a kill. They can quite comfortably do that again every couple of minutes.
Absolutely. Now, Magic Felix has nearly got his flash available, but a lot of the damage has already been done. He's lost his tier 1 turret at this point in time. That flash from Kikis probably, you know, people might be saying, why was that? Why was that necessary? It stopped Rise from getting towards the turret. It gave them the siege time that they needed. Maybe they could have done it without the flash. He might have been able to walk in, but remember, you've got to get around that little edge of the brush where you become vulnerable between the two turrets. By flashing over, you take away that vulnerability. And they were able then just to secure the turret. I flash for a turret, even if you don't pick up a kill, is probably worth it regardless. Obvious here, still looking to make an impact, Munchables. Level 8, hasn't used his ultimate. This is why Rengar often isn't seen as often in competitive play. It can be, especially when you're behind, very difficult to find your way into the game.
Yeah, it's all about being able to utilize that ultimate, but if you don't find the opportunities, very difficult to have an impact. I want to look back at Champion Select now, what we saw of Champion Select at least, and what picks we saw come through very early on. We saw the Syndra, so far, been doing a phenomenal job. Now, down in the bottom lane, we saw Varus, was one of the first picks for Euronics. Like, all we've seen so far is a 10 CS lead. Do you think that's enough to justify that first rotation pick?
Look, you know, I haven't seen much competitive on 624 yet. None of us have. This is the first tournament on 624, I believe, with Camille enabled, that we are seeing high-level competitive play. So there might be things that are eluding me in terms of why Varus is creeping in here, but I've always considered Varus picked as a counter specifically to Jhin when you've seen it later on in the draft. Unless you felt that there was a composition that Fnatic Academy were running specifically around Jhin, or sorry, specifically around Varus, I don't know personally why you would take that earlier on in the draft, but, you know, the guys behind Euronics Gaming, they would have had a plan here, but me personally, I don't think I would have given up the Syndra, the Lee Sin, and also the Karma in exchange for a Varus.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things you did mention earlier is that in this patch, we're going to be looking at teamfight comps and we're going to be looking at siege comps. And Varus certainly one of the kings of the siege, but also, as you rightly say, does teamfights incredibly well as well. So maybe just deciding that in this meta, it's a perfectly good one. And as we said before, this is the first tournament that we're going to be seeing on this patch. So this is uncharted territory.
You've also got to remember that if they can isolate a target, you've got Maokai Twisted Advance, you've got the Bowler, and also obviously the ultimate coming out from the Rengar. You've got Rune Prison, you've got Varus ultimate, and you have Noxiac's Bubble. Yeah. You could probably take one person out of the entirety of a team fight, even split that across multiple people. But that does require you, I think, to not be super behind when you get to a situation when you're trying to make that happen. Right now, Fnatic Academy aren't giving Euronics Gaming that opportunity. They're the ones that are dictating pressure around these global objectives, pressure in lanes, and it means that you're not getting this ability for Euronics Gaming to group up and try and make these kind of picks happen, because they have a pick composition as well. You know, you've got to look at it in that frame of mind too. And against a Jhin and a Syndra, picks are pretty good.
And I mean, we just saw there, Dragon does get taken away by Fnatic Academy, so they lead in one tower, one Dragon, and Cedrian might be one AD carry that's about to go down here. Broxah, though, has to flash to safety, was tanking up the tower there, but look at this, ESG have been forced away. Teleports are going to be cancelled from the top lane, and all in all, Summoner's burn on both sides, but everything negated. Yeah,
Magic Felix makes a nice timely rescue, I would say, on that potential tower dive there in the bot lane. Obviously, Noxiac also had the wave, didn't decide to use it. It was probably too late for him to use it against that Jhin ultimate at that point in time, and everything just backs off. I think what you were looking there for Broxah was probably to find a good kick onto Cedric and try and get him taken down with the curtain call and then try and siege onto the turret, but Rise, using the ultimate, gets there in nice fashion. And obviously stops that one dead in its tracks. So right now, you know, the major advantage that Fnatic Academy have managed to pull out the bag here is all that pressure in the mid lane. And this Q looking for potentially onto Phones.
Excellent use of blast cones here. Does miss the stun though, and Phones will be able to walk away there. Does get altered, but you know, he's got that vengeful maelstrom to protect him from magic damage.
Let's give huge credit to Phones there. He twisted advanced the Scatter the Weak in insane reaction speeds, and then obviously proc that ultimate to stop the Syndra ultimate from finishing him off. I don't know whether it would have killed him regardless. He has picked up a bit of magic resist in the form of the Mercury Treads and the Spectre's Cal. However, you know, good practice to do so and definitely kept him in a healthy position. And they haven't been able to capitalize on taking the turret off the back of that either. So Fnatic's found that first chip in the wall. They're struggling to find the break.
And that's the second time now that we've seen Fnatic search for an opportunity, try and make a play, and it's been denied by ESG. That's 2 in a row. They tried on the bottom lane when all 4 went down and the teleports were cancelled. Now they tried in the top lane, couldn't quite make it happen. So Fnatic managing to take an early lead, but yet to really snowball it.
And I think the sort of the impetus is on Fnatic to try and force these plays, because you get towards the later stages of the game. Rengar's pretty good. Ryze is insane. Varus scales quite nicely in terms of a lot of the damage coming out from his piercing arrow will be, you know, huge as the game progresses. And Phones stacks up nicely as a tank, you know, better in a teamfight situation, potentially even Nautilus in protecting his team. So the pressure probably is on Fnatic at this point to continue to make plays and continue to push the advantage.
Well, they're going to do exactly that right now. Phones is going to be locked up down in the bottom lane. Couple of ultimates have been used. Does Flash the final shot from the Curtain Call, looking for Nisku, and this is the power of tanks on this patch as he manages to bring one down. In the meantime, he's got his teammate Cedrian up in the top lane, takes a tower, so they trade 1 for 1 in kills, they trade 1 for 1 in towers, but look where they are in the top lane. ESG have played a blinder.
Yeah, specifically Phones as well. I mean, he has looked insane in terms of turning around potential ganks. He did obviously lose his life early on in that lane, but really well played under that bot lane tier 1 there, just to buy enough time for his team to be able to return a 2-for-1 trade in terms of turrets, and also now rotate to pressure the mid lane as well. That is an incredible set of macro play, all facilitated by Phones' ability to just survive.
Yeah. Phones has been so impressive so far this game. Obviously, his score doesn't reflect that. It's not like he's been hard carrying the game so far, but that's twice now that he has survived, whether it was just surviving a gank altogether or whether it was managing to bring someone with him. But both times, it's been Nisky that he's been outplaying. He's been bullying this Syndra.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the obviously the help came through the ability for the turret to deal the majority of the damage there, but Phones locking the people up in the right places, activating the Vengeful Maelstrom at the right time, dodging as much damage as he could with the Twisted Advance. You know, he played that really well and has actually given his team a good foothold to keep themselves on level pegging. They're only a slight amount of gold behind. 2,000 gold is not a huge amount at this stage in the game. And Phones allowed his team to catch up in terms of turrets, because now it's 2 for 2.
Yeah, now Fnatic have rotated up towards this top lane. They're looking for a tower, but Kikis has been locked up here. Obvious going to get the chain as well, but Kikis has got plenty of armor against 2 AD opponents there, and it means that Fnatic take this top lane tower. Engage coming through from Kikis. He's looking to try and capitalize. Gets the lockdown. Obvious. One more turret shot will not quite go through. And Obvious walks away with his life. In the meantime, Phones once again against the entire Fnatic team.
Yeah, he's going to do his best here, and the rest of Fnatic are coming through.
Will be able to clear a fair few of the minions, but look how tanky he is. They just don't do enough damage. We'll be able to walk away, but the tower, this time not protected, will be traded for a mid lane tier 1, though, on this side, as ESG managed to get that. We do have a player down in the bottom, Magic Felix. Another 2-for-1 tower trade in favor of Euronics.
Yeah, I think it might have been 2 for 2, because I think they got both the tier 1 and the tier 2 in the top lane, so you end up now at 4 for 4 in terms of overall turrets. But regardless, Phones bought a lot of time there for the rest of his team once more. Got to note that Twisted Advance, he is so good at dodging damage with the Twisted Advance. Managed to dodge a large portion of the Syndra ultimate there as well. So didn't die, bought his team time, ended up on level pegging at the end of the game as well. So you know, solid piece of play from them. But again, the pressure from Fnatic Academy is building. You know, they are starting to pressure the map across as this roaming ganking squad. And, you know, ESG have got to buy themselves time. They're now heading towards a fairly stacked Ryze at this point. He has now picked up his Negatron cloak, got that Rod of Ages, got the Mercury Treads, and the tier will be almost fully stacked at this point in time. So, you know, ESG needed time, and they have found it in bundles.
They certainly have, and I mean, when you look at the gold difference that we've got right now, it's basically the same as it was at 8 minutes in the game. We're now 18 minutes in the game. With that not changing at all, the value of that gold difference has gone down. And when you look at the map, basically mirrored, because ESG, they've been getting these favorable trades in terms of towers. Fnatic were ahead originally, though, so now we're kind of even this game up just a little bit.
So we've been talking a lot about how ESG have been doing really well to keep themselves in this, but let's praise Fnatic for their ability to maintain pressure. They've been able to consistently maintain pressure in every lane. They still have all of the neutral objective control. They still have the deep vision in their favor. And you can see here now, they are looking to pressure onto this tier 2. They're going to go here to see a fight, Munch.
They certainly are. The tower hasn't gone down, though. Kick is still tanking this one up, trying to finish it off. He's tanky, but how tanky is he? Tower finally drops, and that means ESG have to leave on this one. Magic Felix flashes away. Will get caught by the curtain call. 2 low HP members right at the back, but Noxiac blocks the final shot. Phone's now on this front line, but he's not long for the Rift. He's tanky, but not tanky enough for 1v5, and will go down.
Okay. I've got one word for you there, Munchables. It's karma. Karma is insane in
what,
these...
as in they deserve that?
Yeah, no, well, yeah, maybe, but karma is... I mean, yeah, they deserved it for the draft phase, I think. But, honestly, karma is insane in these kind of fights. You saw there that, by all... rights and purposes, without a karma, Fnatic Academy would have been dead in the water. It was a great Nami wave. You stopped the Nautilus hook. The tower didn't go down for a good 10 seconds there. And a lot of that was facilitated by Clyde's ability to consistently keep up shields. He tended to reset his ultimate as quickly as possible, got the team-wide shields off, soaked up a huge volume of damage, and they were able to kite back quite nicely, keeping Kikis alive as long as possible, tanking the turret, and basically draw ESG in one by one. And when Phones came in, the rest of ESG had to back off because of the curtain call. It was a really nicely timed curtain call by Mr. Rales. There was nothing to stop him, feeding those bullets into the rest of the ESG team because the wave had already been used. So again, just a nice sort of symphony of a teamfight play there, facilitated again by Clyde's amazing ability to shield up as much as possible and the timing of that ultimate from Mr. Rales.
Okay, so my question to you now, Excalibur, is where do we go from here? What does Fnatic do to continue to push this advantage? Do they start to look towards Baron now we're past 20 minutes, or do they need to finish off the tier 2s first?
I mean, you can start to look to set up around Baron. As long as you can threaten Baron and draw ESG into a team fight, then at this point in time, with you being that much further ahead and having the karma on your side, you probably can get team fights that go in your favor. And you're going to see it now. They're actually going to go straight for Baron. They're not even baiting it. They're just going straight for it here, Munch.
Yeah, Magic Felix will have that Realm Walk available to get up towards this top side of the map. Baron down to half HP, but it looks like Fnatic Academy still committing right now. I thought they were going to back away. Kikis misses his flash hook there, but Noxiac is locked up regardless. Will be going down here to Broxer, using that Dragon Rage just to finish off the kill. Now Obvious locked up by the curtain call. Phones once again on this front line. We'll be able to get out away on the Realm Walk though, but nearly getting locked up here. Flashes away from the hook. Phones all out of summoner spells, all out of cooldowns, but we'll be able to get away again though. Fnatic pick up a kill.
Messy could have been a lot better for Fnatic, but they still come out slightly ahead. Phones here going a little bit aggressive. He's lost his flash, Munch.
Oh, great twisted advance once again, this time dodging the route from Mr. Rales. Now he's all on his own at this front line. He's all out of defensive stats and will go down. These piercing arrows, they're coming on through, but we're not late enough in the game. There's barely any AD on the Varus.
Yeah, he went for that Runan's Hurricane first. When you used to see Varus mid lane, he would never go any form of attack speed. It would be all about buffing up those piercing arrows as much as possible. I can see what ESG are trying to do here. We may see another defense. I don't think they'll have enough in them, though, to defend this tier 2. Yes, they will. They're just going to back off.
And there you go. I mean, he went for the Hurricane. He's going to give him a little bit more wave clear, so at least they can finish off those minions fairly quickly. And I think deciding that with the low HP bars, the low mana bars, maybe that was a bit of an overextension for Fnatic if they'd kept on pushing.
Depends, yeah, well, it also depends what they lose off the back of it as well. I don't think they'll lose this tier 2 mid, but they might lose a lot of Baron pressure that they'd worked hard to gain with all that vision. It really depends what ESG can do in terms of clearing. Yeah. I also wanted to point out that I can see what ESG are trying to do in this situation. The reason why Phones did try to re-enter the fray, bait people in. They're trying to bring Fnatic towards them, but never actually find that initial engage, because Phones is the one that's tanking up the majority of the engages from the Nautilus, and then you have the piercing arrows flying in as they're kiting backwards. I think that's what they're attempting to do here, but like you said, you're just not late enough in the game for Varus right now.
I do want to revisit the conversation about Phones, because we were talking about him earlier. Yeah. Honestly, we were singing his praises earlier on in this game. He had 2 phenomenal plays back-to-back right there, and he has had some fantastic twisted advances, but we cannot ignore the fact that he is 1-4 right now, and his opposing laner is 2-0-3. Kikis is playing a blinder on this Nautilus. He's 30 CS up as well. And he's been doing phenomenally in these team fights.
I think it's almost this sort of weird mirror that Phones has been making incredible micro plays, but maybe some of his macros come into question. Kikis has been playing maybe some questionable micro plays, but his macro has been very good. And you can see here, we're going to get another potential engage.
Yeah, the tidal wave will deny the fourth. No, it won't. The fourth one goes through onto Cedrian, but Broxer will get annihilated as he tries to go in for the Dragon Rage there. Kikis now trying to escape with his life, but I'm not sure actually if they're going to be able to get away. This could be a great fight for Euronics, but how much damage do they have? Kikis still basically full HP, but finally the DPS has caught up, and that is going to be Cedrian grabbing himself his second kill of the game now. And with 2 members down, including the jungler and the top laner, no teleport here, Baron will be started.
Phones doesn't have his flash for the engage, but this seems like a moderately sensible move for ESG. You do have to fight against the Syndra, who can work very well in the Baron pit here. Much was just like that.
Yeah, that's a route onto Phones as well. He's incredibly low and will go down. Baron getting the killing blow, in fact. But the credit goes the way of Niski. Now Magic Felix trying to do what he can, but an excellent exhaust from Cly will deny anything. This is going to be denied as Obvious falls down. Has 2 kills to Baron. He's the MVP of this fight, and it is going to be Fnatic managing to deny that neutral objective.
I said moderately sensible, gave myself some room for a mistake there. Again, playing against a Syndra in the Baron pit is so difficult to do, and now Fnatic are the ones who are going to turn it on its head and attempt to take Baron clean off the map. Remember, you've got to deal with Cedrian on this Varus. Those piercing arrows maybe can get some work done. He's not even going to try. He is just going to let this go. They realize they have lost this global objective here. Fnatic played it incredibly well, specifically that combo between Niski's Scatter the Weak and Mr. Rallis' ability to lock people up with his Deadly Flourish.
Yeah, you notice both Deadly Flourish, or both people that died were Deadly Flourished and took an extra hit from Baron. And that is, you know, it's all about being able to play around that objective. You know, when Baron is being taken by your opponent, that is going to be doing probably the majority of the damage in the following fight.
Absolutely. ESG now starting to fall further behind, but again, you know, this isn't exactly like a dominant lead for Fnatic Academy. You'd say this is a healthy lead, but again, you need to continue to maintain that pressure. Essence Reaver has been completed now for Cedrian, so he's going to have a little bit more AD in the back pocket, and that'll be good for him. He's also going to pick up an early Last Whisper here. That's going to give him some armor penetration going up against that. Looks like Randuin's being completed on Lee Sin, and also the Sunfire Cape Iceborne Gauntlet combo you're seeing coming out from Kickers.
Absolutely. Well, ESG now starting to fall more significantly behind. They're a Baron down, they are 6,000 gold down, they are 2 towers down, and they're 2 dragons down. You know, we've been talking about how ESG have been managing to kind of delay the inevitable here. They've been able to stall out, but how long can they hold on to their inhibitors? That's going to be the key question in the next few minutes. This Baron buff should be a huge factor in trying to take out those objectives. Yeah,
you know, you've got decent siege coming out with the Syndra by herself, and add in the Jhin with the Curtain Call. Sometimes Curtain Call can send enough of a message that ESG will have to back off a turret regardless, and that gives you then the time with whatever else you've got to seed the turret with to try and push onto it and take it down. I can't remember the 2 Drakes that they have picked up, but there is a Mountain Drake waiting for them, which will aid their siege should they take that off the map.
So, Drakes will be up in, I think it's about 3 minutes until their Tidal Wave will go out to deny the Curtain Call here as the siege begins on this bottom lane tower. So far, Fnatic not really able to get any major damage down onto this tower, struggling to really get this siege to stick.
Absolutely, and again, to be honest, it is difficult to make the siege work for Fnatic. You've got to at least force someone out, try and make a pick with the Syndra, or push someone back with the damage that she can put out. Mr. Rallis isn't going to get too close. He wants to try and have that backline position for the Curtain Call. If the Curtain Call comes out, you've basically got Cly and Niski who's going to be able to siege the turret from a range, and then you've got to commit Broxer and Kikis to a melee range, which can be difficult to do so. And actually you can see that ESG aren't falling for it, but nice rotations means they've got a bit of damage on this mid lane.
Yeah, fantastic rotation there from Fnatic, and they will get 2/3 of the tower down in that mid lane, but can they finish things off? Bones again taking huge amounts of damage on this front line. We'll get some healing from the Redemption, though.
Something we haven't talked about, Redemption, one of the new items obviously added in the preseason going into this new season here. Probably one of the most OP items in the game, flat out. It is just so good, and you know, picking a support that can, you know, build it happily as a first item gives you such a nice build path in the current meta. Look at this, though. Split pressure has worked out nicely here for Fnatic.
Can they finish a tower off, though? That's going to be the big question. The siege minions have to keep on going here as Magic Felix will get stunned up. Death charge going through his entire team will knock him up. Curtain Call won't land, though, as the rest of ESG will block up. But Phones once again gets hooked in. He's incredibly low and will not get finished off. Gets a shield in the last second. There's a heal as well. Dragon's Rage won't finish it. Sonic Wave lands, but Brox's out of range. And that is finally an inhibitor going down. It's the mid lane as well. A lot of pressure, but here we go. Phones isn't done yet. He's like, you know what? You can't kill me. I'm going to make you pay for it as he jumps straight onto Nisqy. Flash comes out from the Syndra, though, and actually Phones just gets obliterated immediately. Look at this, though. ESG re-engaging on this one. They don't want to give up just yet, but Noxiac goes down for the double kill, and now Nisqy proving his worth on this one. 5-1-5 on the Syndra. He's the player we talked the least about when it came to the Fnatic roster, and he has been all over this game. 10 of the 11 kills have been his.
Look at the build path he's gone for as well. I mean, this all spells out that he knows that once he breaks through that line of Phones, he's going to have free reign of the Euronics team. He's gone for second completed item, Void Staff. He's got the Haunting guys in there working towards what could be Leandri's Tom, and he's basically saying, I'm here to burn through tanks.
Yeah.
And in this current meta, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you know, even with this build path being this far in the game, you're probably going to be able to one-shot both Magi Felix and Cedrian anyway. Why not make it even easier for you to deal with Phones? And he's done that with his build path. It has been a really, really cool build path that I'm seeing coming out from just the second item, Void Step, with all that flat penetration coming out too. Nisqy's really got his finger on the pulse right now in terms of how to deal with what ESG are throwing at them.
And I think as well, Nisqy is basically saying to Phones right now, you ruined my perfect game. You were the only one that managed to kill me, and I am going to punish you for it. Now building basically to kill Phones alone. And I mean, it's been working absolute wonders. 9,000 gold is the lead in favor of Fnatic Academy. People were questioning whether or not Fnatic Academy would show up in this tournament. You said it yourself that Fnatic Academy, people were saying maybe they aren't going to be one of the ones going through. Right now, absolutely look like they will.
This is a really important game as well, Munchables, if you look at the entire group, right? This is a game that if you win, you give yourself, based on the predictions of most people, you give yourself a huge advantage to actually just make it out of the group straight up. You know, this is a best of one round robin. Fnatic and ESG, pending no tiebreakers, are not going to be able to play against. I don't even know if you could get a tiebreaker between these two, because with one of them beating the other, we'd have to look into it. But basically, winning this matchup gives you a huge advantage, given that these are two favourites in the group.
Certainly does. I mean, we'll have to see. We've got Nerve and Tricked in the group as well, so we'll see as the group pans out. But certainly in this game, Fnatic look like they absolutely have ESG's number, but Phones is not looking for that to be the case. He's looking to make something happen. The super minions have been dealt with here by Magi Felix, so this is their perfect opportunity. It's
a last-ditch attempt, right? This is basically all they've got going. They can't defend against this double super wave much. Phones is going to get spotted out by Ward. Immediately you're going to see the reaction from Fnatic Academy.
Not having any of it. Cly as well gets the group shield and speed up there, the mini Sivarult, to make sure that the rest of ESG wouldn't be able to follow up if Phones did engage.
They know that Fnatic Academy were going to take this slow. They knew that they were going to lose to the push eventually. They were looking to make a play happen, if not to win, to at least force Fnatic off the siege. But now, with the super minions doing work, this should be an easy siege onto the bottom lane tier inhibitor turret here. The ultimate comes out. Mr. Alice gets a couple of shots down.
Noxiac, though, lost 2/3 of his HP. He's going to have to go back to Fountain if he's not careful here. And this should be the inhibitor tower dropping a couple more hits. No, are going to be forced away again. I like this from Fnatic, though, playing it patient. They don't want to force anything that they don't have to.
Some of the biggest mistakes you make in this kind of situation is getting really itchy to try and force that inhibitor turret. You don't need to. The super minions are doing the work for you. We've got to fight.
Yeah, we do. Phones has gone all the way onto the back line, but he's slowly but surely melting away here. Broxer trying to do what he can, but he's all out of energy. Will finally go back in, but he's actually got a GA himself, so this is a safe lineup from Fnatic, and now they've managed to force ESG to disengage. That gives them opportunity to hit onto this inhibitor. It's so low, but Cedrian's been caught up. That's going to be a deadly flourish to finish him off. Rales gets the kill. Now Magi Felix on the back line will be able to get finished as well. Actually flashing away, but does finally go down. That goes the way of Noxiac. There's the third inhibitor, the trifecta, as now Fnatic Academy head towards this Nexus. This could well be the very first game of the Challenger Series qualifier going the way of Fnatic Academy. Noxiac trying to get up to Fountain, but Curtain Call getting soaked up by Phones here. This second tower goes down. Phones now with nothing to protect him except a couple of teammates. He will go down. Obvious has to run for the hills, as does Noxiac. The Nexus is being beaten on down, and Fnatic Academy take the first game of the Challenger Series qualifier.
What a performance by Fnatic Academy there, going up against Euronics Gaming, a team that most people predicted to be almost a sure slip-in to get it out of the groups, and Fnatic Academy schooled them in a lot of respects. I've got to say, I'm really drafting this back literally to the draft phase. Those 3 power picks that came up for Fnatic Academy in that first and second rotation, it just seemed almost too good to be true. There must have been a plan behind what Euronics Gaming were doing with their draft phase. There must have been. There was no way they would have done it otherwise, but it's a plan that obviously didn't work.
Just coming in there, actually, I was talking to a couple of the players who were in the tournament throughout that, just saying, you know, why is this Rengar being picked? What's going on? Apparently, Rengar is top tier in scrims at the moment. Very powerful. If you power farm to 6 and your lanes actually manage to stay in the game, you come in with that ultimate, you're able to get that empowered W off to cleanse off any CC that lands on you as well, and you can get a stun and a slow coming out. So Rengar, the pick, surprised me at the time, but looking at it now actually works really well with their composition because, as I said, when we were in that draft, a lot of it was looking at trying to shut down that Jhin and then be able to carry the game from there.
I totally agree with you. If they executed it the way they should have done, right? I agree with you the fact that, and we talked about it, Rengar is super powerful post-6, but what Lee Sin does is he applies pressure pre-6, and especially in that mid lane where Rengar's very, unfortunately, never really going to have a huge impact because it's a lane matchup that Syndra wins naturally, right? Especially pre-6 and post-6, Syndra generally wins the Ryze matchup. Ryze can't contend with her on a one-to-one basis. And with the fact you add Lee Sin into the mix, suddenly you've got multiple threats approaching Ryze, who is one of the core cornerstones of a late-game orientated composition coming out there from Euronics. What we needed to see was specifically what you touched on there, Sona, which was the fact that, you know, Varus was picked specifically to deal with Jhin. You know, you can start to pressure him, you can get him chunked down, ready for that gank coming in from Rengar. Post-6, as soon as 6 hits, realistically, you need to start seeing Rengar come into lane. I actually don't know if we saw a Rengar ultimate that entire game. I can't remember. There might have been during some mix of a team fights, but actually an impactful Rengar ultimate.
Yeah, there were a couple during some of the later game teamfights, but as you say, his gank potential wasn't great. Broxah on his Lee Sin was absolutely superb in the early game. You guys talked a lot about how Phones was dodging ganks and managing to keep himself alive. He was, but if you look on the other side of the map, Kickers never had to suffer through that pressure. And because Phones was getting forced back, it meant that we saw mid lane tower go down. I think it was about 9 minutes for Fnatic, meaning that Rengar gank can't come out as easily in the bot lane. You've got so much more pressure. You can push forward into the jungle, which you mentioned, and it was so easy after that point for Fnatic just to execute their game plan.
I've also got to point a finger over at... just Munch had a point. I'm going to hand it to him.
I just want to take a quick look at the schedule for today because we've still got 5 more games coming up. So obviously we missed it earlier on as we jumped straight into that.
My prediction was Fnatic Academy for the first game.
Yeah, we didn't do it.
So was mine.
We didn't do it. It doesn't count.
We will be doing predictions throughout the day, but as you can see, those are the games coming up across the rest of the day for you guys at home that managed to miss it earlier. But I do just want to quickly shout out one of our sponsors as well. Alienware are going to be sponsoring this event for us, so I will say you can head over to esl.gg/Alienware-EUCS if you're wanting to upgrade your equipment and maybe head into the next Challenger qualifier. That's going to be the way for you guys to do it. But we are going to be recalling quickly, but when we head back to lane, we'll be jumping into the second game of the series.